My journey. I will always remember this day. It was in September 1965 on a Monday, and this was the first day of school. My sister, brother, and I anxiously got into our 1960 blue Chevy Nova, and our stepmom drove us to school. As I entered Asheboro High School for the very first time, my anxiety almost got the better of me. Thus began my journey into integration. The journey will begin with segregated schools in Randleman area. In the early 1900s, the black children in the St. Peter community, and that's about 3 miles north of Randleman, went to school in the old St. Peter Church building. Later, they attended a 2-room school that was across the street from the church. One of the teachers, Miss Louise Hardy, and another one was Miss Mary Harrison. Miss Mary Harrison often cooked oatmeal for the kids for breakfast, that I was told, and the young men had to go out, get water, and they had to come in and make fires in the old wood stoves to keep the place warm. And I was told they were often cold. Around the 1940s, the school was closed, and the students went to school at a school near Hoshaw Grove Baptist Church, and that's on Bowman Road and 311. But the high school, they rode an old bus from St. Peter to take the kids to the school near Hoshaw Grove, and then the high school students, or the ones that could afford to go, went to high school in Asheboro. In 1955, all the black schools in the Randleman area were closed. The Randleman students had to attend school in Asheboro Central High School. Now, we have the city schools and the county schools, and when I worked in the county schools, they always talked about the different funds for the city schools and for the county schools. Now we have county students going to school in the city schools. The superintendent at that time was Lacey Presnell, and they paid extra money to the city schools because we had county students going to the school. Now, my husband is here today, Jerry, and Jerry was a bus driver, and he drove students about 20 miles each different ways to and from school. They had to pick up students almost up to the Guilford County line. And they passed by several schools, several white schools on the way to school. Now, but I also met him when he came down to Randleman. And we've been together almost 56 years. Now, I lived in Asheboro, and I went to school in Asheboro. In the 1920s, the black students from in and around Asheboro attended a rundown wooden building at the corner of Burns and Greensboro Street, and it was called the Asheboro Colored Graded School. Now, the winds were definitely ripe for change when the students moved from Asheboro Colored Graded School to a new structure, because I've read that about 3 weeks later, the wind did blow it down. The name was then changed to Randolph County Training School. And Professor C.A. Barrett was the new principal. The new structure was bounded by Franks, Watkins, and Brewer Street. And this structure is still there today. But it's now called Eastside Homes. And it's homes for elderly and low-income people. that's a picture of the school. Which told me I wouldn't have trouble doing it. Okay, that's a picture of the school. And a part of that was added on. That was some of the buildings. Some of them were added on later. In 1946, J.N. Gill became the principal of Randolph County Schools. When the school opened, this was his first year of employment at Randolph County Training School. He certainly had a challenge. He had nothing to work with. He had no brooms. The kids had no supplies. But then when they finally did bring them supplies, they were all used. They were used brooms. And we often wondered after we were in school, who were the children in the books? Because we didn't recognize any of the names. But it was because they were all used books from the white school, and they would bring them to us. Now, after I started teaching, I found out that at about every 5 years, you change your books. So they would give us the old books, and they would get the new books. There was no cafeteria, no gym. They had 8 grade levels of elementary school, and they were taught in 4 rooms. And they had 3 high school teachers that taught for 4 grades. Even the principal had to teach. Now, after that, let's see, where is it? Well, I had a picture of the band. Oh, right here. Okay, now I'll talk about the band. Mr. Morgan was Randolph County's first band director. His responsibilities included more than just making music. He had to teach music, math, physics, chemistry. No time was set aside for band, so he often had band after school, during lunchtime, and he even worked some Saturdays. Now, he went to pawn shops to get the instruments for the students. Now, some of the parents that could afford it had an installment plan to buy instruments for the students. But Morgan felt that the students could learn to play music and to perform if given a chance. They had no uniforms, but they wore black pants, black shoes, and white shirts to perform. The band always received excellent ratings. The band even cut a record. Now, they were often asked to perform at the country club. Now, you know we didn't go to the country club. They were often asked to perform at country club, parties, and parades. They were always in the parade. Now, the band had gone to A&T for a band festival. And the other students there at the band festival didn't treat them quite right. So they thought that they were coming from a reformatory school because it was called Randolph County Training School. Even though they got an excellent rating, the students still felt bad. So they talked about they need to change the name of the school. So after Morgan had gotten back to school, he talked to Professor Gill. Then Professor Gill went to Guy B. Teachy. He was the superintendent of public schools at that time, the city schools. He talked to them about having a name change. So he said, well, what do you want to change it to? So they said, well, that's the students had talked about, and they wanted to change it to Central because Ashburn was in the center of the state. So that's why it became Central High School. And then after that, the enrollment increased and more rooms were added. Now, the athletes had no place to practice. So they had the wooden, I don't know if you probably don't remember, any of you remember, they had wooden chairs, and they were like 2 seats, but they would fold. So that's what they had in the auditorium. And when it was time to practice, they had to move the chairs. Every time they got ready to practice or play, they would have to fold up the chairs. Finally, a gym was built. Professor Gill helped to get a lighted field. He would persistently ask permission to use the white field. This was at Lindley Park School. And he would have to schedule his games and practices when they weren't using it. They finally got tired of him doing that, so they purchased land and put some lights on it for the ball field. But then they had no bleachers. So he would send coaches to Lindley Park School to dismantle the bleachers, take them back to Central School, put them back together. And then once they were finished, they had to take them back to Lindley Park. So I think Lindley Park got tired of that, so they bought them some bleachers. Now, life at Central High School. My sister and I would walk to school every day. We had fond memories of our school. We had a nurturing school with teachers living in the same community and had easy access to our parents. Teachers would often come to your house to discuss matters of respect. And I can remember my older brother. The teacher came to visit my father. And she said, well, his name was Ben. And she had told Ben to do something. And when she turned around to leave, Ben snapped his finger at her. So she came to the house to tell my daddy about that. But he never did that again. Now, there were numerous opportunities to participate in extracurricular activities after school. We had band, glee club, football, basketball, 4-H club. And these are some of the activities that participated at Central. And again, this is Miss Elizabeth Jones, right here. Taught us English, history, and many other subjects. She exposed us to cultural activities such as plays, field trips, and even classical music. Now, the United States Supreme Court on segregation in the public schools in 1954 brought about some consolidations and reassignments. Real changes came in Randolph County in the year of 1965-66 when desegregation was effected. Now, in 1965, Central High School closed because of desegregation. That was for high school. Now, they had an elementary school still there, but the middle school and the high school had to go to different schools. And then all the students had to attend schools in their district. And this is when we were separated. We had gone to school all these years with students, especially students from Randleman and one from Farmer. But that senior year, we were separated and we had to go to different schools. Now, I had to attend Ashboro High School. Ashboro High School was a beautiful school, and you can see that it still is, with many amenities for the students, state-of-the-art athletic facility, well-equipped media center, many types of audiovisual equipment, and new textbooks. Now, they had taught college preparatory classes, and they had a student lounge. In spite of all the amenities, I felt isolated because sometimes I was the only black student in the classroom. Some of the teachers made me feel inadequate as a student. But what I wanted to say to those teachers is that I do have the capacity to learn, and I'm not inadequate. I've just not been exposed to college preparatory classes or curriculum. We didn't have that at Central High School. It was a small school, and everybody took the same classes, regardless of whether you were going to college or you're going to be a maid, because that was about what we did, or you were going in the factories. But everybody took the same classes, so they didn't offer college preparatory classes. And when we filled out our sheets, I said that I was going to college, so they put me in a college preparatory class. And it was very difficult because I had not had experiences with a lot of the writing that they had done there. But I wanted the teacher to know that I could learn. And I do have the capacity to learn, but I had not been exposed to this type of curriculum at Central High School. Now, but some teachers were very supportive. Mr. Van Hoy was my civics teacher. I had met Mr. Van Hoy about a year or two before, and we had served on a biracial committee, and this was before the integration had started. We were working together to do some things. And so he made me feel special, and he kept telling me that you can do it. And then I had Dr. Frances Smith. She was a French teacher. Well, I had taken French 1 at Central and made good grades. So I thought I could do French 2. So I went to Ashburn High to do French 2. And the teacher said, you can talk all you want to in here, but it has to be in French. Well, I didn't know what they were even talking about. So I talked with Dr. France and told her Dr. Smith and told her what was going on. And we talked about dropping the class, and she wanted me back. So I said I still wanted to take her class, so I took French 1 over again because I didn't need the class to graduate, and I didn't need the class to go to college. And I really liked Dr. Frances Smith. And she hadn't been too long retired from Nashville City Schools. Now, as I reflect on my educational journey, I'm both saddened and proud for my educational experiences at Central High School and Ashburn High as well. I went on to graduate from Winston-Salem State University, a Bachelor of Science degree in Education, A&T State University with a Master of Science in Elementary Education, all of which prepared me for my successful 40-year career with Randolph County School. I taught at Randleman Elementary. Now, even though we had all these experiences, the experiences are different for the kids now in an integrated situation. The school was small and couldn't offer what the students really needed. So by going to Ashburn High, it gave them more opportunities and better chances. So there were a lot of good things. Now, I would like to thank Ms. Donna Toombs and the Randleman Library for this opportunity and privilege to come and share my journey with you.
Thank you.